Second hour of our program. On the line with us is Michael Tomasky. He's the editor of the New Republic, newrepublic.com. If you don't subscribe, you should. It's a great publication. And he wrote this piece yesterday. It's the Biden versus Trump economy, and hell no, it's not even close. I thought this was just so brilliant. I want to really highlight it for all of you. Michael, welcome to the program. Tell us about you open your article by saying, I'm going to tell you something that I'm pretty sure you don't know. What is that?
Oh gosh, I don't even remember now. But
it was that for the first time, wage growth is consistently stronger in the middle and the bottom than at the top.
That's right. Yeah, and that the guy goes on to say that wage growth, people's purchasing power now is greater than it was during the Trump presidency, and greater than it might have been even if the pandemic hadn't happened and you did these other hypothetical exercises. So in other words, people are in better shape than the media lets on. I mean, I'm not saying, and I point this out in the piece, Tom, you can't grab people by the lapels and say, but the economy's good. You know, you have to meet people where they are. But at some point, the numbers are the numbers, and the numbers have to tell us something, and the numbers are good. And then I go through that opening vignette is from a recent study by 3 respected economists, and then I go through those numbers and some other numbers to compare the two. And I understand inflation. I feel inflation myself. I notice the difference when I go to the grocery store, and a basket that used to cost $130 is now $190. So I notice these things, and it's very real, and I don't want to say it's not real, but other aspects of the performance of the American economy under Joe Biden have been just great, and there's a lot for him to brag about.
Yeah, we're beating the economies. I mean, we're in many ways, we're looking at unemployment numbers we haven't seen since the 1960s. We've got inflation around 3%, which frankly, I remember when the Fed's goal was 3%. I mean, now they're talking about 2%. Of course, we've got a Republican appointee as chairman of the Fed. That might have something to do with it. I think he's trying to produce a recession, but who knows? I could be wrong. But you also note in your article, you said if you're waiting to see this reported in the mainstream media, that this being that the economy is actually doing so well that in ways that are arguably unprecedented, or at least unprecedented in the last few decades in modern American history, you say, I advise you to stop. It's not going to happen. Inflation, gas prices, et cetera. It seems to me that we have a media problem in the United States, and I think that I'm trying to remember his name. The former Prime Minister of Australia wrote a piece. Kevin Rudd wrote an article for the Sydney Morning News about 5 years ago, and the headline was "Rupert Murdoch is the cancer at the heart of Australian democracy." That was the title. And he documented how Rupert Murdoch had corrupted, essentially, the conservative parties in Australia, and then moved to the United Kingdom, where he corrupted the conservative parties of the UK, and in fact even led to Brexit. And then he moved to the United States and corrupted the Republican Party of the United States, and he's done it all, in the process of doing this, of reflecting his own personal and relatively bigoted perspectives. He's turned himself into a multi-billionaire, How does a country deal with a media vehicle, a major media vehicle, so embedded in the fabric of American media that, large chunks of the American populace just don't understand reality, whether it has to do with COVID and masks or vaccines, or in this case, the true nature of the economy. What do we do with this?
Yeah, I don't know. It's very hard because the other piece of this, Tom, is that the mainstream media bears plenty of responsibility here, too. Okay, so you have what you pointed out, the Fox-led right-wing media, which, as you know, is not just Fox. It's Fox, it's Newsmax, it's One America, it's all these Sinclair radio stations and local television stations. It's Christian radio, which is very political and has vast reach across many parts of the country. And, Joe Biden could cure cancer, discover a new wonder drug, and get the economy, get the Dow up to 140,000, And none of these outlets would ever give him any credit for anything. They'd never say it was any good. If the economy was humming along, at 8% GDP, they'd say it was all Trump. Biden had nothing to do with it. So there's that media. But then the mainstream media is another problem, particularly with regard to economics, I think, because business reporting, economics reporting, as a rule in the mainstream media, tends to emphasize the negative and tends to say, well, okay, these unemployment numbers are good, but could it mean that there's a recession around the corner? And what's going to happen with interest rates? So they're always kind of emphasizing the negative, and they're not telling any kind of positive story about the economic numbers. The job growth under Joe Biden averages 289,000 a month. That's the most of any presidency on record. Any presidency on record. You look at Trump's job numbers before the pandemic, and let's say that, his response to the pandemic was his fault, for sure. The pandemic wasn't his fault, but his job growth record was, I forget the monthly number, but in his first 2 years of his presidency, it was 4.5 million. Okay, that's good. That's a good solid number. The last 2 years of Barack Obama's presidency, 5.2 million. So for the last three, and then of course Biden's first 2 years, 11 million. So of the last three presidents, Biden's first, Obama's second, Trump is third. I don't think anybody, if you polled people who read, forget Fox, the mainstream media, they'd never guess that.
Yeah, it's certainly worthy of a press release or something like that. A couple of weeks ago, I published a piece at Hartmann Report about how the Russians and the Saudis had just announced. I wrote it right after they made the announcement that they were cutting oil production. The Saudis were cutting it by a little less than 1 million barrels a day, and the Russians were cutting it by about 300,000 barrels a day. And, with the explicit intention of raising oil prices. We saw this just before the 2022 election. Whenever there's a Democrat in office in the White House, you get these spikes in oil prices in the months leading up to the election. And the Saudis, and the other thing that I think most Americans don't know, is that in 2017, Trump's first year in office, the Saudis made a bid to buy the largest refinery in the United States. It's in Port Arthur, Texas. It processes 600,000 barrels of oil a day, and producing massive amounts of refined petroleum products. And were that refinery to simply go down for maintenance for a week or two, you'd see the price of gas go to $7 a gallon. And not to mention the fact that there's this huge production cut that they put into place a couple of weeks ago that they said they're expecting to see cause national or international oil prices to rise significantly over the next three or 4 months. So there's a very high probability we're going to have really high gas prices in November. And, we remember the last time this happened, the Republicans were putting those stickers with pictures of Joe Biden, and I did that, on gas tanks, gas stations all over the country.
Yeah.
I've not heard a word about this in the media. And it seems to me like at the very least, the Biden administration should be decrying it, getting ahead of it, and doing something about nationalizing that, the largest refinery in America. What say you?
Yeah, that's a good point. They should be looking at that, and they should certainly be proactive on this front and be talking about it now before it happens, so they don't look completely reactive if and when it does happen. Yeah. It's autocracies, authoritarians around the world. Of course, they want the Republican to win over the Democrat. But they certainly want Donald Trump. There's no question about that. Yeah. Go from the new guy in Argentina to Netanyahu to Putin. Maybe Xi is of mixed minds because of the tariff stuff. That I could see.
Although Trump just rolled over, on TikTok.
Yeah, well, true, he did. But generally speaking, the authoritarians, they want to see Trump win for one of two reasons or some combination thereof. One, he's like them. Join the club, man. Join the team. Number two, they know with Trump in the White House, there's going to be chaos in the United States.
Yeah.
And the United States is going to emerge a weaker place, a divided place, maybe not even any longer a democracy after 4 years. And that's what they want.
Right. Make the world safe for autocracy and oligarchy. I mean, this is just clearly, and Viktor Orban as well, I would add to that list.
Yeah, well, of course.
Yep. Michael Tomasky, the editor of the New Republic, newrepublic.com. Check it out. And it's, like I said, it's really worth subscribing. Also on Twitter, Tomasky, or at New Republic, or X, or whatever you want to call it. Michael, thank you so much for dropping by.
Thank you, Tom. Enjoyed it.
My pleasure. Great talking with you.